Well, hello there again. This is the second one in this little mini series that I'm doing. Since I'm on a roll, I just said I'd keep it going. Like I mentioned in the last segment, I'm doing some traveling today and I don't have to drive, so yay me. Now, in the last segment, we talked briefly about being clear, being concise, and cutting to the chase when making a point. But then I also had the question asked of me, Stella, when you're coming out of a poverty situation, what's the first thing that you do? Now, what I want to differentiate between right now is a poverty mind versus a poverty circumstance. A poverty mind means a prevailing thought system that has kind of overshadowed your whole life. Okay, so if it's just been a circumstance that's overshadowed your whole life, that's where you're going to have to evaluate your mindset and your thinking. Now, you'll have to do that in every situation anyway, but you'll need to differentiate between, is this a poverty mindset that I'm experiencing, or is this a temporary circumstance as a result of something that has happened? Now, let me give you an example. A poverty mindset may be a person whose family has generally lived off of public assistance. Okay, mom was on public assistance, mother had children on public assistance. Now the children are on public assistance. That's an example that's likely to have a poverty mindset. A poverty circumstance, however, may be, let's say a woman was in a domestic violence situation. She's typically had a spouse that took care of that family. Then she makes the decision to move on. She's got to go. And then all of a sudden she leaves the house, has to leave everything for her safety. That's a poverty circumstance. That's a circumstance that resulted that's a financial situation, a financial crisis that happened as a result of a negative circumstance. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to have to do in the first scenario is you're going to typically have to renew your mind. You've got to and that's going to be a longer term process. If we're talking about a mindset versus a circumstance, the mindset, that's going to probably take it's going to take longer for the mind to change. That's why the Word of God says by the renewing of the mind. Okay, but now the circumstance, what does a person do in that circumstance? At some point, when you start talking about building a financial base to establish and solidify your life, the first thing you're going to do in building a financial base is you got to get a job. I remember when my own marriage ended and I went to court and had to moved out of my house temporarily in a shelter. And then when we went back to court, the judge said, what do? You need to get a job. Within 24 hours, I went out and I found a job and I started working. Did I love that job? Absolutely not. Did I want to stay in that job? Absolutely not. But I had to get a job. So your faith focus in that financial crisis, which created a poverty circumstance, your faith focus has to be shifting towards employment. Now, what we're going to talk about next in the next segment is, how do you know what kind of job to go look? You're in a poverty circumstance, or you're in a situation and you're trying to figure out, where do I've got a lot of things that I'm good at, got a lot of things I can do, but where do I start? How do I know where to start? We'll talk about that one. So in this segment, we talked about the difference between a poverty circumstance and a poverty mindset. They require two different approaches. A poverty circumstance is a situation that happens as a result of something that transpires. You walk in work one day, they tell you the company is shutting down and your job is gone in 24 hours. You come home one day, your abusive husband says, I'm gonna kill you, you gotta go. You leave that day to save your life. Those are financial circumstances that create a poverty situation. It's not long going, hasn't been on standing, but it has to be addressed. The other poverty mindset is where an individual has lived a lifestyle that has been rooted in financial lack, and it is just they're completely so those are the two. So thank you for watching these. Like I said, I'm traveling today. I'm just going to create more of these as it's coming because it's flowing. I'm telling you, getting rid of that clutter did it for me. Stay tuned. More to come.